Well, I was talking about it earlier. One of the things that people have been asking me is if Sigma is still good after the nerfs, or how do I feel about Sigma? And honestly, I still think Sigma is one of the more well-balanced tanks in the game. Like, the reason being what makes Sigma so strong is the shield to begin with, right? Like, that is the first step. The shield alone, having like a shield that you can move around the map is really strong, because Overwatch has become less and less about shields now in comparison to Overwatch 1, where shields were like one of those things that were a big part of the game. You had to break shields to get through shields. So Sigma's, in my opinion, still a very good tank. Like, to give you an idea of what changed about the rock combo was that normally what you would be able to do, and I'm going to show you two different styles of what happens with rock combo, is you rock, and then you left click, right? Before that would one shot if you hit every single shot, and as you can see, it leaves them at low HP. Right, that was the change. That's what they changed.
I'm not so
the reason why they had to get rid of that or change that or wanted to, and I mean they still didn't have to, was what you can do is you can rock, hold your left click, and look what happens. See how quickly that damage was? That's the combo that people were doing. So what would happen is that there wouldn't even be time to react or do anything, because what Sigma would do is Sigma would hold left click down and do that combo. But that combo wasn't really happening a lot, but it was still something they wanted to get rid of because people were able to use that combo quite a bit, right? You would just rock, left click, and that would be it. You'd fall over. It would basically be, it would feel like you're getting one shot. It was actually something they've talked about, where it's the feeling of getting one shot, even if it's not a direct one shot, like doing that. Now, obviously, like, there's timings you can do, but now I still think Sigma's good, because Sigma's strength is more about taking map control, right? So, for example, when you're playing Sigma, having your shield and playing an off angle and just having map control is so key. That's why Sigma, I still think, is so good. Like, yes, you lose the one-shot combo, but it's not like you were finishing games as Sigma with 52 limbs, and 48 of those limbs were one-shot combo. Sigma is still good. Sigma's value comes a lot from spam damage, from the CC from Rock, which now has a longer stun. Like, that's Sigma for you. You want to zone out the map, create map control. So, to like the actual question, is Sigma a lot worse since the nerf? No. Do I still believe that Sigma is probably one of the most balanced tanks in the game, or the most balanced tank in the game? Yes. I think Sigma's like difficulty comes with a lot of different stuff. For example, it took me a long time to get good at Sigma because of the projectile, right? Projectile means that where your crosshair is going isn't like when you hit scan, your aim will be on the crosshair, but when you use projectile, you know, it will be a little bit behind. See when I'm moving my mouse? It's gonna be where you at, where you were at initially. So, think about Sigma is a lot of it is understanding. Okay, when do I want to just left click at somebody, right? When do I want to, bounce the damage off the ground, right? When do I want to do angles like this? When do I not want to show and just do that? You see that? That's the thing about Sigma. That's what makes Sigma so good, is because you have opportunity to get so much damage output that even without the one-shot combo, you can still have very high damage games, right? You can still have very high damage games. And then you have so much damage mitigation, which is why if you ever have, you can do so many different things with Sigma, where you can get over shields. So, I think Sigma's still good. I think like if you get good at Sigma, you'll probably be able to climb or play well as Sigma. Just because, do heroes counter Sigma? Yeah. But do heroes hard counter Sigma? Not really. No. What are some heroes that hard counter Sigma? You could argue that like playing against a Sombra can hard counter a Sigma, because you just get hacked the whole time and your ultimate becomes useless, right? It's Zarya, but like, I'll be honest with you. Let me ask you a question. If you're playing Sigma, right? If you're playing Sigma and there's a Zarya, am I doing this?
The barrier appears.
Am I playing against Zarya like this? You said Zarya's a hard counter? Zarya's not a hard counter. You're not playing against Zarya like this. You're not going, hello Zarya, we're gonna play Rein versus Rein as Zarya versus Sigma. No, that's not what you're doing. Sigma's playstyle is generally meant to be like this. Look at this. Look at the range I'm at. I am still doing damage to Zarya. You know what that Zarya would do right now to me? At that range? Nothing. Literally nothing. Yeah, if a fully charged Zarya runs at you, right? And you're playing like this next to Zarya, then yeah, Zarya's gonna do well against you. Someone said Ramatra, same concept. When you play against a Ramatra, you're playing back. Now, don't get me wrong. I will say, Ramatra definitely does well against Sigma, and when I go up against a good Ramatra, I generally have to play really passive. But that just comes down to, like, team comps. Then you get, like, someone who goes Zen in your team, and guess what? You just sit there. Against Rein, same concept. You don't want to play, like, I've talked about this with Reinhardt and Sigma. You do not want to play Sigma like you're playing Reinhardt. Just because I have a shield does not mean I'm going, hey,
Activating the barrier.
I have a shield, you have a shield, let's play the same playstyle. Right? See what I'm saying? Like, you're not playing Reinhardt against Reinhardt. And that's what makes Sigma, like, really fun. Is, like, you can play range, and what makes Sigma so strong and, like, a very well-balanced tank, and why I think that nerf doesn't change much with that. We'll continue talking about that a little bit in the next one. Back to Sigma that we were talking about. I still think Sigma's probably one of the more well-balanced tanks in the game. We were just having that discussion a little bit earlier before the queue. And that, like I said, a lot of it's because you can just kind of play it on any map. You can play Sigma on any map. You can play Sigma against most heroes, most team comps. But I will say there's one team comp I don't like playing Sigma against. All right? I'd say there's one, it's Rush Comp. Why is Rush Comp a struggle for Sigma? Because you like, oh, match rank. Oh, okay, that's the first time I've seen that. We'll go back to that after. Is Rush Comp, but I'll explain why after. So as we've been talking about with Sigma, why I think Sigma's one of the more balanced tanks. There are comps that Sigma can struggle against, or heroes. For example, going up against like a good Doomfist. Doomfist can displace you pretty easily, right? So like, you know, you could be like playing here and then you're, you know, spamming them out over here and then Doomfist can punch you in. So like, you have to be aware of some of the heroes they're playing. But I would say one of the hardest comps to play against Sigma is Rush Comp, because Sigma struggles against like heroes being like right on top of them really close. So overall, in my opinion, like outside of like playing against Rush Comps and then the occasional like, you know, certain maps where you won't do as well, Sigma's a very well-balanced tank and one of the more well-balanced tanks in the game. If we look at, you know, the nerf, I just don't think the nerf will change how much Sigma is played or how good Sigma is. You will notice it sometimes when you're like 1v1 in like a support or something like that. But overall, I really think that Sigma still will be really strong, and that Sigma still will be a pretty strong pick across the board. So, just remember with Sigma, projectile aim. Play range with shield. Play range with shield. Your rock now stuns for 1.1 seconds instead of 0.8, so they're stunned a little bit longer. Okay? Alright? So I would say, yeah, Sigma's a pretty well-balanced tank, and the changes don't really make Sigma that much worse. I think Sigma still is probably like an A-tier tank. I would still put Sigma in like A-tier. A lot of maps you can play with Sigma. There's like King's Row might be a struggle because like you used to be able to set up on King's Row on the high ground, but you can't do that as much anymore because there's only one tank. So like obviously if Rush Comps are dominant on that map, Sigma won't play as well. You know, I've had some success with Sigma on push, but then if they run a Rush Comp, that's where you would probably switch. But overall, for the most part, you can play Sigma pretty much on any map. Who's S tier? I don't know yet. I won't make a tier list yet. I don't know who the S tier tank will be this season. The season, the heroes are definitely a little bit more well balanced across the board when it comes to that. It really depends. It really depends what the meta is. If we shift into like a Briggs Zen meta, then I can see Sigma Ball being played a lot. If it turns into like a Life Weaver meta, we might see a bit more of the dive heroes being played because you have some synergy there, or you might see some other various comps. But overall, I would say that Sigma is probably around the A tier. What the S tier tank will be, I have no idea. You said you think the Sigma changes moved him to be a more team-oriented style? I mean, I don't see, like, you don't have to change your playstyle as Sigma because of that. Sigma already was you play back and you play off angles. If you played right in front of them as Sigma, that was giving them an advantage against Sigma. Like, I don't think that really makes Sigma more of a teamwork-based hero. I think that Sigma, generally, you want to play at range and you want to play off angles and you want to give your team opportunity to use that shield or use the shield for yourself like you would as Zarya Bubble. I don't think that, like, the change itself makes people gonna play Sigma with their team more. I think automatically if you want to play Sigma playstyle, like, you want to be with your team, but you want to be further back. You don't want to be, like, up against them. I should have earlier. Like, once again, you don't want to play close to them as Sigma.